Hello, I'm Jared.
And I'm Ebony, and this is his.
And hers, Warhammer 40k.
Woohoo!
Yay! We have returned, and with a miniature case. Ebony has been busy painting all sorts of fun stuff. We've got some squads of Votans, some Demonettes, a few Space Marines.
Bunch of big bads from Oathsworn.
Yeah, we got a whole set of Oathsworn for those who are familiar with the board game. Those are being painted up. So
we were running out of bookshelf space rapidly.
So slowly everything here will be filled up. I even need a second one eventually.
Maybe. I think that's all we've been up to. Painting things, playing board games. Well, I published a story.
Oh, yep. You got another publication.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the show notes to Cold Open.
Yep, sounds good.
Space Marines. It's about Space Marines.
Oh, of course.
I never write about Space Marines.
Oh, yeah. Well, you did one other, I think.
Once.
Yeah. Nice.
Reading.
Reading
a lot.
Yeah. Although in this case, listening. Today's episode will be covering The Rose in Darkness by Dani Ware.
Which I picked.
You did, yeah. With the audiobooks, we kind of just go through whatever is getting recommended on Audible.
Yeah, and it suggested this one.
And just kind of pick whatever. There's not normally any like series that we're following for the audiobooks. A lot of standalone stuff. Yeah. Did Angron.
We did.
Although I guess we did do the last Dawn of Fire book.
We have done more than one Dawn of Fire by audio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but
today,
those we usually follow along as well on paper.
Yeah, this one was 100% listening for both of us.
Yep. Which made for some interesting listening, I would say.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
There's a lot of singing in this book.
I loved it.
There's way more singing than I expected there to be.
At first, I thought it was weird, but then I really got into it. I will say that I got it on Audible thinking you wouldn't be interested, and I made it maybe to like the 40% mark before you started listening. I went back.
That is true. I completely forgot that.
That's right. Yeah. And I thought it was so good. I was like, you have to listen to this book.
Okay.
So I made you read it, which I hope you liked it. But yeah, I thought the singing was kind of great.
So, it was all right. It was a little too much, like too frequently for me. Like, it was okay every once in a while.
It was okay. I guess we should back up. This is a Sisters of Battle book.
This is a Sisters of Battle book, specifically about the Order of our Martyred. Order of the Bloody Rose.
Yeah.
Starring Sister Superior Augusta, who is a character that has appeared in a number of short stories by Dani Ware.
Okay. I haven't read any short stories, but you've read them.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe there is a short story collection that is a prequel to this.
The Rose at War. This one's called The Rose in Darkness, right? Yeah. The other book was called The Rose at War, and I chose on Audible one that was a novel instead of an anthology of short stories.
Yeah, The Rose at War is an anthology.
Okay.
I have read not all of them because I picked them up through sorts of other collections. But I was familiar with Sister Augusta.
Okay.
And there are a surprising number of references to those short stories.
Yeah. So the singing, back to the singing, I think it's a little bit of a sort of tactical story too, that is a thing that Sisters of Battle do. To sort of like disarm and like disorient enemies, because the first time that it happens in the book, which is also the first time that we meet this squad of Sisters of Battle, they are running a practice drill on a ship, and they're trying to take some flag, right? They're playing capture the flag basically with the naval officers on this Imperial ship, and they're down in the guts of the ship, like walking through sewage and bilge, and they leave a decoy sister and she's singing. And I think it just is sort of it is both, faith bolstering for them as, Sisters of Battle, but it's also disorienting for enemies, I think.
My biggest issue with it, though,
was that they weren't all great at it.
They were flat. Like
one of them was very good.
They're just not good singers.
One of them was okay. I think Akemi's. Also, we were listening to the audiobook, so we are at the limit of that voice actor's ability to sing.
I'm aware.
But I think she also was trying to give them very distinct voices.
Yes.
Like, Sister Augusta's voice is terrible when she sings, but when Sister Akemi sings, it's fine.
That I will say. Pretty strong narrative voices for each character.
Definitely, yeah.
Really kind of helps
to
characters. Define them.
And I haven't read a lot of Sisters of Battle stuff before.
So you read the Dawn of Fire book, and they featured in Iron Kingdom just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But But for the most part,
I've never read a full Sisters of Battle novel, though.
I don't believe so.
And I thought it was good.
James Swallow has a trilogy of Sisters of Battle books that are sort of like the classic angle. So I take that back. You read Requiem Infernal.
Oh, I did.
Which was very Sisters of Battle focused, but in a very different way.
Yes, yeah. I thought that they were all distinct characters. I thought that it was easy to tell different sisters' voices. Mm-hmm. Their personalities are interesting. And so sort of the start of this story, so we get that view of the sisters on the ship. And the other starting point for the story that I think hooked me is we get sort of an ongoing nightmare.
You're talking about Camilla.
Yeah. So Camilla, who is in a sort of planetary Imperial Guard regiment.
So she is in what is effectively a PDF.
Okay. And they are all they're in their barracks. She's asleep, and they're all having these suspicious dreams that make them talk in their sleep, and they're going to say something that we're going to say a lot probably in this review, so I won't say it yet. But she has this sort of nightmare that she wakes up and realizes that all the sort of cadets around her in the barracks are also having this nightmare. And so she sort of gets up and starts her day, which brings us to the world that we're on, which is Opal.
Opal.
Yeah.
I don't believe it is directly stated, but my belief is that Opal is a shrine world.
It is. And sort of the culture of Opal is that thousands of years ago, there was some sort of war, and some soldiers and citizenry martyred themselves to protect Opal.
Yes, so throughout the book, especially the early part of the book, mm-hmm. and this might actually be some of my favorite information from this book, is we learn about Saint Varus, mm-hmm. or I should say we learn the imperial belief of Saint Varus. Yeah. So preface that.
Yeah.
But you have Saint Varus and the three martyrs, mm-hmm. The Saint Zalin and his most holy sacrifice, mm-hmm. the Thousand Humble.
Yeah.
All of these are sort of heroes from this epic that occurred on Opal thousands of years ago that have developed into various religious sects between the imperial cult mm-hmm. around the sector where Opal is stationed.
Yeah, and so every 800 years they have this sort of festival of martyrs or festival of saints, and that is what's happening on Opal right now, which sort of on the military side, Opal has its planetary defense force, which Camilla's in.
It's kind of hot trash.
Which is kind of just, it is a military in name, but not in practice, because they haven't fought anyone in thousands of years. So they dress up in their uniforms and parade around.
Well, I would say, just preface that there's sort of two branches to the PDF. Mm-hmm. There's the Blades of the Holy Interior and the Blades of the Holy Exterior.
Which the interior is like about the temples and churches, right?
Correct. The Blades of the Holy Interior are the ones who don't do anything, really. They train, they fight each other for like honor and prowess and bragging rights, but they do not do anything. Yeah. Not really. The Blades of the Holy Exterior
are kind of the police.
I would describe them more like border guards.
Yeah.
Almost like ICE.
Yeah.
They basically keep out what you'd call the riffraff or the undesirables.
Yeah. And there is this culture of there's very rich people on Opal because it's a shrine world. A lot of its revenue comes from people going there on pilgrimages and buying like
pretty much all of its revenue.
Yeah, and buying like bullets that were used in the war of 1,000 years ago that are definitely fake, that some dude hawked to you on the street, right? So like that is almost all of their income, and so the ecclesiarchy is quite rich, and then there are the like not so rich regular people who live in sort of the outskirts.
Yes.
Outside of the...
You have the main city.
Yeah.
And then you have sort of the rest of the planet.
Yeah, and we meet Camilla in the middle of this dream, and then the next thing on her docket is that she's fighting in a sparring match that cadets are in, and she's really good. Apparently she's short and small, but like she grew up in the outskirts, and the thing that her dad and her uncle, who's a priest that we'll meet, taught her to do was defend herself, and so she beats the crap out of a dude in a boxing match and makes all this money. But we get a good view of the street, I think, from Camilla, where she is like offended by how like sort of griftery and car salesman-y it feels, because we feel from her like a real thing. So
the character of Camilla, I would say throughout the beginning and through the middle of the book, there's a phrase associated with her that gets mentioned a lot, which is, what side of the river are you on? Mm-hmm. So the river is kind of the dividing line between the haves and the have-nots. Having grown up on one side and then trained on the other side, she's sort of dealing with that.
Yeah.
And she reaches out to, I guess he raised her?
Yeah, Arcas raised her.
Father Arcas, who is a priest amongst the outsiders, who she's asking about this dream, who she comes to for advice.
Yeah.
And he is, a do-gooder. He's
he feeds the poor.
Right.
Yeah. And so she tells him that she's having these dreams, and the sort of theme to the dreams and the theme to the book is that Saint Varus comes.
Saint Varus comes.
And so everyone's saying that in their barracks when she wakes up in the middle of the night. People are saying it on the street, but it's making Camilla uncomfortable. And so she tells Father Arcas, and he kind of tells her to relax. But in the sort of middle of telling her to relax, a dude shows up and kind of challenges the priest and the outskirts people.
Henrik.
Yeah.
Yes. So at the start of the book, we get this antagonist, Henrik, who appears to be of a more violent subsect of believers.
It feels kind of like rebellious. Like he feels in the beginning like, oh, all of the people in the city are religious, but they're fake religious. Like they don't understand that it's about helping the poor, and Arcas, you're supposed to be all about helping the poor, so like your group of poor people should join with our group of poor people, and we'll stick it to the rich people. And that, at its face isn't super alarming.
Putting a pin in that,
we're going back to the sisters.
The sisters are given a mission to go to Opal to retrieve a holy relic there called the Skull of Saint Varus. And apparently the word of these uprisings and Henrik's group and others like him have reached the Order of the Bloody Rose.
And they want to protect
protect the relic. So their goal is to go to Opal, get the relic, bring it back to Ophelia 7, which for those who don't know is where half of the imperial cult is based. The other half is on Terra. That's a whole separate history lesson on why that happened.
Yeah.
And so Sister Superior, Augusta and her team, Viola, Akemi, Malaya, and Kaya, are all going to Opal expecting things to be pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, Augusta's like, we'll get there. We will see this deacon or priest or mayor or whatever. We'll be Sisters of Battle. We'll say, give us that skull. It'll be great, except they get there and the deacon is like, we wait 800 years for this festival wherein we give a sermon and parade the skull of St. Varus around.
So Opal is controlled, or at least we get three sort of officials.
Yeah.
We get Planetary Governor Mahali, who's a pretty cool dude, all things considered. He has his belief that Opal is a world worth continuing to exist, and that it needs to be defended, and that its people are at least given the benefit of the doubt good people. We then have Archdeacon Janos, who is an absolute asshole.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick.
And is so obsessed with this festival and getting everything running, and he is clearly written to be hated.
Yeah.
I don't love that.
I would say one of probably my only pet peeve about this book, I guess, if we're talking about how we feel about it, is that there are some things that just drag on a little too long. And I get, sometimes you want the reader to be on board with you, so you're like, these people are going to have this argument, but like... So
let me just say the third leader, and it will lead into your point. Yeah. So the third leader is Commander Mezai, who is the head of the Blades of the Holy Exterior, and he becomes
isn't it a lady? I think she's a lady.
Oh, I couldn't actually tell.
I think she's a lady.
Okay.
I think the voice is feminine. The reader of the audiobook is definitely a woman, so unclear. But
right. You're probably
think she's
right
a lady.
Then. All right.
Or it is that person, and he dies, and his second becomes the leader, and that's a lady.
I might have gotten confused in that listening to the audio.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you have these three individuals: the Planetary Governor, the Archdeacon, and the Commander of the Blades of the Holy Exterior. Augusta has the exact same conversation
Mm-hmm.
with all three of them at different points of the book independently.
And the
that
conversation is
consists of-
basically, give me the skull. We're not giving you the skull. Give me the skull. We're not giving you the skull.
No, it's not that.
Yes, it is. There's that for a long time.
And then cancel the festival.
Oh, yeah.
We're not canceling the
The
festival.
festival.
Cancel the festival.
We're
not canceling the festival.
Yeah.
And this goes on.
There's at least like 3 whole chapters of that.
No. It's not that much.
It feels like a lot.
It
There's
is a
lot
chunk.
of it.
And especially when listening to it, you notice how long this is going.
Yeah, you're like, are we still having this fight?
Yeah.
How long have you been talking to this man?
That, at least in the midsection of the book, that was my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's why I'm not a sister of battle, because I would have just murdered that man and took the skull.
Yeah, no.
We gotta go.
Not allowed to do that. Like,
I don't know
listen,
that that's true.
As a sister superior, no, you don't get to do that.
I don't know that that's
As
true.
a canoness, things are a little bit different.
It's like, sir, we're leaving with that skull.
Yeah.
Bye. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
So we're 3 days out from the festival occurring, and eventually,
also there's a conjunction.
what's your function?
There are planets like aligning, and they only do it every 800 years, and
Yeah.
that's why the festival is there. There's like some space situations.
I don't remember how that came into play.
I don't actually know that it has anything to do with anything,
Okay,
unless it makes it easier for things that are going to happen. I don't know
Okay.
about that, but like some stars are aligning.
Okay. Yeah, I don't
Doesn't matter.
actually remember that too much. Anyway, so we're 3 days out, and the compromise is that they're going to hold onto the skull until the 3rd day of the festival, and then they're going to give it over.
Yes.
Basically, that's when the curtains are pulled back, and everyone gets to see the skull, and it's the big thing, and it's like the primary revenue stream for all of Opal for the next like 300 years.
Yeah. So we'll let everyone see that skull, which means the sisters have to like stay on planet, and there's a little bit of internal dialogue from Augusta about like how maybe in stories that I didn't read but maybe you did, she made some rash decisions that got her previous second in command killed.
Yes.
And so now Viola is her new second in command, and there's a little bit of tension there because she feels like the sister superior.
She is sister superior.
The other one, the bigger one.
The canoness.
The canoness has implanted the second in command a little bit to spy on Augusta.
Yes.
So she's a little bit of tension with Viola about that. And so she decides like, okay, I'm going to be less hot-headed than maybe she had been previously, and like we'll chill out. We'll participate in your festival. We'll walk around in our armor. People will be awed. It'll be great. Then you'll give us that skull and we'll leave.
As part of that, one of my favorite scenes that does occur is when they approach one of the shrines of the Thousand Humble. And it's just a very intimate scene in which Augusta has a discussion with just the protector of what is one of thousands of individual shrines, I guess this makes sense, to the Thousand Humble. I just really liked how it was written. It made the faith like feel real.
Yeah.
You know, that is a big part of this book that I enjoyed, and especially in contrast to the last book. The faith feels real.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's one of the big positives.
I would agree.
For it.
Yeah. And so
I would say that leads us into the reveal, or they start tracking Henrik down.
Yeah, they're trying while they're there to like tamp down on some of this uprising, talk to the leader of the Holy Blades.
Right, they connect with Camilla.
Right, yeah. And they happen to connect with Camilla because as part of their following maybe some brigands or people who are part of this rebellion, they happen upon the second time that Heinrich visits Arcast, and Arcast and Heinrich get into a fight. Heinrich stabs him. Camilla starts punching people, but someone punches her in the face and she gets passed out, and the sisters show up, fire their weapons into the air, everyone scatters. They lose those sort of brigands, but they're like, Augusta's like, let me get that cadet girl and figure out what the deal is with this priest. And so that like we get a fade to black on Camilla. It's from her perspective because she gets punched in the face.
Right.
And then she wakes up in the infirmary with Malaya taking care of her because Malaya is the medic of their team.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. And so she wakes up, and then basically we get what's the rundown. Like Camilla gives them the background of what's going on, who Heinrich is, and Augusta and the rest of Heinrich, yeah.
Henrik.
Henrik?
You keep saying Heinrich.
I really want his name to be Heinrich. Henrik, who Henrik is, what the deal is. Argast is passed out because he's got a gut wound, but they think he's going to be alive. And basically, the sisters come to the conclusion that there is a gene stealer cult.
Yeah, so
it's always gene stealers.
It's unfortunate because about a little less than a third of the way through, I would say,
you were like, it's gene stealers.
I went to Eb, who had read a little further at this point, and I said, okay, it's either Zainch or it's gene stealers, and I really hope it's not gene stealers. It's gene stealers.
It's definitely gene stealers. Yeah.
And it's as by the book gene stealers as you can get, with very little exception, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, you are dealing with the Magus, you're dealing with the Patriarch, you're dealing with all of the generations of the cults. Like,
I did appreciate, so I guess I've only really ever read the one book about gene stealers.
Day of Ascension?
Yeah. I appreciated, so obviously these two main characters, the sisters and Camilla, are going to link up, and the sisters are about finding the Patriarch and the Magos and getting rid of the Magus and canceling this gene stealer situation before the Tyranids show up, really. But Camilla doesn't know that, which I kind of love that about Warhammer in general, that a lot of time the forces on the ground have never seen a Xenos, have no idea what a cult is. And so there's this, what I think for me is a really powerful scene where they are using Camilla's knowledge of the city to walk through these like underground like water cisterns or whatever to catch up with the rest of the cult. And they finally encounter the cult and the sisters start destroying them, and Camilla is like, what is happening? These are normal people. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, she has no idea what's happening, and it's great.
They go down with the blades of the holy exterior, and they're freaked out.
Yeah.
Because they are expecting like monsters.
Yeah.
They're expecting first and second generation.
Yeah.
And they're getting fourth and fifth generation, which look human.
Yeah, they just look like normal people. And so she's just like, I don't understand. Why are these sisters so violent? Like, what is happening? But they have sort of instituted this plan where the sisters and some of the blades are going to flush out the cults that are living underground. Because apparently this, like, whatever water system is set up to use the river and feed water into the city can let you get from the outskirts into the main city underground with no one seeing you, which is clearly a huge weakness. And BTW, they turned off all of their fighting skills while they were prepping for 800 years for this fair.
Yeah.
So like there are no surface to like space missiles for an oncoming fleet invasion. They're just wildly unprepared.
Yeah, that's a serious issue. They eventually managed to pull some stuff together.
Yeah. So they're trying to flush them to a known location and then like destroy them all method.
I'm trying to remember who they end up finding there.
At some point in the middle of the flush, though, the sisters get separated from each other. Like, I actually think it's that Camilla and Malaya get separated and they're with Arcast, and Augusta and Kaya and Akemi get separated. And Akemi gets hurt, and Malaya and Camilla get captured. And then the big twist for Camilla is that they have corrupted our guest.
So...
You didn't like that twist?
Did they corrupt him? Or was it just, like, hive mind psychic impact? Because this is something, and I've read other stories with other gene stealer cults that you have not read, where basically they don't have that kind of psychic power over anyone that isn't, like...
already
has gene stealer in their blood.
See, well, we don't know that he doesn't have gene stealer in his blood, because apparently they've been on this planet for hundreds of years.
I guess
maybe everyone has a little gene stealer in them.
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility. I just feel like that wasn't sort of mentioned explicitly.
But everyone's having that dream, and is that a gene? Do you have to have gene stealer in you to be receiving that dream signal?
I don't know.
Because if you do, the answer is they all have it.
Well, if it's coming from the hive mind, no.
Okay.
And that's what it might be. Like, you don't really see this too often, where the actual hive mind itself is using its psychic abilities to control people in a fairly direct way for them. Like normally it's just the the darkness in the warp, which blocks astropathic signals.
I see. Yeah, unsure how he gets turned then, I guess. He could have always been, but I don't think so, because I don't know why Henrik would have attacked him if he, like, why were they fighting in the first place?
I mean, I don't, if everyone already had Gene Stealer blood in them, then I don't think it was a known thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, so either way, he's bad. Camilla's very upset about it, and Malaya basically sacrifices herself for Camilla to escape, because now Camilla and Malaya have figured out sort of where the central gene stealery-ness is, and someone needs to get that information back to Augusta. And so Malaya sacrifices herself and saves Camilla's life. Camilla escapes and makes her way back to the rest of the Sisters of Battle and helps them finish that sort of, we're going to attack them. Meanwhile, Tyranids have arrived, correct? Right?
So
like the Hive fleet is close.
You skipped over something important.
What did I skip?
Which is the rest of the Order of the Bloody Rose shows up.
Oh, I assume, in my mind they happened at the same time, but you're right. They're a little bit early. I guess.
So we are introduced in the third act of the book to Canoness Ianthe and Sister Rene, who's like the head of the Hospitallers attached to the Order of the Bloody Rose.
Yes.
And the Canoness is awesome.
She is pretty cool.
She is exactly what I want, Sister's Canoness to be.
Okay.
She takes no shit.
Yeah.
She's sort of kind of old and wizened, but still very much in charge.
Yeah.
And she just kind of smacks Augusta around a little bit. And is very much of the mindset that you completely screwed this up.
Yeah, like she's like, please get your shit together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to her credit, Augusta stands up to her a little bit and says that she wants to go get Akemi because Akemi was injured before and they have lost her, sort of, or the cults have her. It might have been that they had Camilla, Akemi, and Malaya. That is what it is.
Did, yes.
Malaya dies so Camilla can escape, but they have to go find Akemi. Camilla comes back with a little bit more intel that like there is something happening that might require a Sister of Battle that maybe we don't want a Sister of Battle to be involved in, as it relates to Akemi and or Malaya. And Augusta's like, well, I'm going to go get them. And at first, the Canoness is like, that's not a thing we do. You don't have to go save them. They're supposed to die for the Emperor. And she's like, but it's my fault. I sent them to do this. And so Ianthe is like, sure, I guess, fine. But if you're not out of here in X amount of time, we're blowing up this whole city and taking this skull and leaving.
Yeah, honestly, the back end of the book is kind of hazy for me.
I mean, nothing unsurprising happens. We
are
giving you all the spoilers, really. It's very straightforward.
Once it's like fully Gene Stealers.
Yeah, like once everything pops off, it goes the way you think it's going to go, right? Yeah. There's a lot of cleansing. They are in the process of evacuating normal citizenry of Opal, and some of them are getting out, but they're not all going to make it. Before the Gene Stealers get there.
I think to kind of jump ahead a little bit and sort of cut this to a close, I think it was the reveal of what the skull of Saint Varus was, which I believe it is a gold-plated Gene Stealer skull.
Yep.
Like the twist, and I guess I was maybe a little spoiled of this just from like some of the discussion I was reading about the book, is Saint Varus is as much a saint for the Gene Stealers as he was for
the people of
the Imperium.
Yeah.
And that basically it was the start of the Gene Stealer cult hundreds of years ago on Opal, and that it's been a thing all of this time and that there's just been this parallel religion, that the Gene Stealer cult is not some new advent, but is actually sort of an intrinsic element of Opal.
Yeah, it's always been there. And so they get the skull, which is not the skull they thought it was. They evacuate a large amount of people, but then they basically firebomb Opal. They can't save Opal.
Right.
And Camilla's really sad about it. They save a couple thousand people, probably.
And Camilla actually gets sent off to be a sister.
That's right. At the recommendation of Augusta.
Yes.
And the backing of Sister Renee and the other sisters.
Yep.
And they find Akemi and she's alive because, dun dun dun, the mayor, deacon, was in on the cult thing, as you would expect.
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, the archdeacon was the magus. He was a psyker in charge of it, and
he was going to sacrifice Akemi as part of the whatever,
Yeah.
You hated that.
It was...
Because it's very obvious.
It's very obvious.
And, like, you hate him from the beginning, right? If it had been someone... I think if it had been the
planetary governor?
Yeah. That would have been way more interesting because you think he's cool.
And I also think the idea of turning that sort of assholeness of the imperial cult to a positive, to basically bring that crazy zealotry on the side of the sisters and be like, we know as a person you're an asshole, but you command like the fervor of the people.
Yeah.
We can use that.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have sort of played into that.
Yeah.
We didn't need the imperial cults to again be completely corrupt from the inside out.
Yeah, I guess that it wasn't... we call it a twist, but I guess it wasn't that surprising.
Yeah, the twist for me was much more that the Gene Stealer cult was so much older than anyone thought it was. And was so tied to St. Varys. It wasn't just something that they kind of picked up.
Scores.
Okay. So, overall, pretty good.
Okay.
Not blown away.
Okay.
So I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Okay. I would give it an 8. You
would give it an 8?
Yeah.
Okay, why?
I thought the characters were really clean and easy. It was easy to get into their head. I thought a lot of the imagery was really good. A lot of that, just the small things about the culture of Opal, like the fights and the selling the like sand from this battle on the street, like all
Opal,
of that.
Opal is very well developed.
Yeah, there's a lot of gems in there.
It's good Shrine World details, which is nice.
I really enjoyed the way in which this squad of sisters prosecute battles. I enjoyed the singing. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's been a while for me where I've read a book where I didn't hate the fighting scenes.
Okay.
So, it's solid 8.
That's fair. Like, the standalone fighting scenes were pretty solid.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's next on our list?
So, next on our list, there's a few things. So
You're reading so many things.
Now we just have an audiobook sort of going at all times.
Yeah.
And our current one is actually another sisters-related book.
Yeah,
it is the audio drama Our Martyred Lady, which is kind of a follow-up to Fall of Cadia, featuring Inquisitor Greyfax from that book and the living saint Celestine.
Yeah, it's going well. We like it.
Yeah.
We're reading Soul Drinkers.
We are reading Soul Drinkers. Sort of big throwback. I got the 20th anniversary edition for that.
And I just read, but we didn't do it. It's got Lehman Russ in it. That's all I got.
Oh, Wolfsbane.
Yes, I just read Wolfsbane.
Okay.
So it could be any of those.
Yep.
Or something else.
One of those will probably be our next one, or something else.
There's a next Dawn of Fire, I think, that we're due for.
Sea of Souls.
That's right.
Which we will get to that eventually.
Yeah.
And then I think there's 2 Dawn of Fires after that.
Yep. All right. So
that's everything.
That's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.